Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for coming out today. We are very excited to have Kate and Renee here today to share with us their experience in cybersecurity and be here to really guide us as we all start on this journey to learn about cybersecurity. To kick it off, I wanted to introduce myself. I am Karen Alarcon. I am the lead for this event in particular. I'm assuming that you are all part of the Innovation Fellows program by the SCET. I also want to introduce Jennifer. uh, and the reason why we thought about doing this challenge was because our world is becoming more data driven every single day, and cybersecurity is impacting every single industry across the board. The personal reason why I started it was ever since my sophomore year in high school. When I first heard about cybersecurity, I was like, whoa, no, I have no idea what that is. That is for very smart people. I could never do that. When I saw my brother like fix something on the television, I was like, wow, he's amazing. He's the most, he's the smartest. But I slowly started to learn about cybersecurity, and it's this huge industry. And I was so surprised that I knew nothing about it. Just when I first heard cybersecurity, I was very like shocked, and it sounded very scary and intimidating. But the more I met women like Renee and Catherine that really guided me and mentored me, I was really able to seek out other opportunities like going to Black Hat or working at Microsoft on their security team. And this really opened a lot of opportunities for me. And I hope that you all, by trying this and getting that hands on experience, you can see if this is something you're passionate about, if something you want to pursue, or hey, you know what, I tried this, I don't like it, but now I know more because I actually tried it. So that's our goal here today, to really expose you guys to this new industry, to this growing field. It's over $150 billion industry, and it just continues to grow. Thank you so much to everyone for being here. This will be recorded and accessible if you guys want to come back to it, watch it later, and so forth. We will be having Q&A at the end of the session. It's going to be a fireside chat, but please have your questions ready, post them in the chat. And then at the end, we're actually going to be launching the CTF, where you all can start your experience in cybersecurity, which is super exciting. At the end, I'm going to be walking you all through one of the flags and showing you how you all can do it today. All right, let me hand it over to Kate.
Thanks so much, Karen. And I could not be more excited to be here and to be working with you again on this amazing type of a program with CTF. I'm Kate Kuehn, and I am going to be the moderator today. A little bit about me from a security background perspective. I have been a CISO, a CEO, I'm a board member, I'm an advisory board member at early stage startups, and I've been in security for about 25 years now, and it's a huge passion of mine. So I'm excited today to be able to talk a bit about our journey, what it's like, some of the things that have got me into security and excite me about it, a little bit about CTF, and really why cyber is such an amazing opportunity to look at from a career perspective and just everything in general. But before we begin, I want to introduce my amazing friend, Renee, and let her tell you a little bit about herself. Renee?
So thank you to both of you and everyone for joining tonight. It's a real honor. It's a pleasure to be here. And so a little bit about me. My name is Renee Goodman. And honestly, the Guttmann, I don't care if you call it Guttmann, doesn't bother me. That's not something I get all crazy about. I do have a strong passion in cyber. So let me tell you, I have a degree in archaeology, and I'll sort of weave that into my story. It was a long time ago. I came back after being overseas for a year, and I had bumped into these people that were doing these things with computers, and I thought, gosh, I'll do that. And I took a 6-month course. And so then I had a bit of a diploma, let me say that. I have done just about everything, I think, as it relates to cyber, work my way up through the career path, starting as an analyst at GlaxoWellcome. And I want to tell you how I got that job. I was actually doing email administration for, I was running the department, there were 30 people, and for a pharmaceutical company. We went through a merger and I lost the job to the other person, from the merging company. And so I thought, what am I going to do? So I literally walked across the hall and I opened the door and there were these 3 people huddled around and they were basically doing IT security. And I said to them, do you have a job? And they said, sure, come on in. And I've never looked back. So that was about 30 years ago. So I built the online systems for Capital One just before the year 2000 so that people could get access to their financial statements. So I was an architect. I've been a Gartner analyst, and then I built the security program at Time Inc. and Time Warner in New York City. I was there for a long time. I was recruited to build the program for Coca-Cola, which I built their global information security program from scratch. I was then hired by 2 more companies, Royal Caribbean, which is a cruise line, and Campbell's, which manufactures packaged, products you eat, everything from pretzels to soups to, they have a huge portfolio. And in those jobs, I was asked to do something different. I was asked to come in and look at the problems that they were having. They already had a team, but they didn't feel they were being successful in certain areas. And one of those areas was manufacturing, and we'll talk more about that. And what was happening with, things like ransomware. And now everything in manufacturing is connected to the internet. It didn't used to be, but it is now. And then secondly, at Royal Caribbean, I established the very first maritime cybersecurity program with the US Coast Guard because it became very obvious to me that, there were a lot of things going on under the ship. Every ship has a data center. And it's the things that passengers don't see that, could really hurt the experience of your cruise. And so I pride myself on being an early adopter. And I've never looked back. And I just think that with so much opportunity, and I'll say this, there's about 600,000 jobs in the US or something like that open today. There's 3.5 million, I think, jobs open around the world. And the variety of things you can do is just amazing. And I tell you my archaeology, let me tell you the story there. I tell people, I always knew this would be really important because mankind is not capable of changing their spot. So everything that we used to do, robbing trains, doing whatever, well, now we can just do all that stuff so much faster, so much quicker, and not get caught. And that's because we are people. And this is fundamentally a people problem.
It's interesting, Renee, that you say, you talk about your path and that you never looked back, because one of the things I love about cybersecurity is that everyone's path on how to get to cyber is different. And I like to joke that, I went to university for theater design, actually stage and lights, for political science, and for public relations. I actually bribed the IT major down the hall with a case of beer to teach me about frame relay for my first interview with a company called WorldCom, and called bandwidth on my first interview. The company needed more bandwidth. And I remember my first boss with tears rolling down his face saying, Ms. Kuehn, if you call it bandwidth again, I'm going to fire your ass. And so I feel very lucky because I look at the talent that comes into the market today that, we've had the ability to have these journeys. And I know for me, the journey was similar in the sense that I went to university for nothing that had anything to do with cyber. I was, blessed enough to get a job in technology, and very quickly it morphed into early stage cybersecurity. And, working in financial services technology, some of the early sales that I did in my early 20s, there was the immediate need for cyber within that world. I remember data center breaches and having to deal with, unfortunately, terrorist attacks, and having a bit of a baptism by fire into the realm of cyber. And it taught me a couple things. One is that there's room for everybody in our industry, because to your point, we need people from a marketing perspective, from a thought leadership perspective, from a business development perspective. And as long as there's people with ideas on how to corrupt computers, and as long as people are using computers, there will be this industry. And, it took me a while in my career, because I saw the ethical responsibility of cybersecurity, to actually embrace and say, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And it was actually when I joined British Telecom that they really pushed me to, expand my boundaries, look at red team, look at blue team, work with their socks, and realize that this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I'd love to say now, and Karen and I were talking yesterday, that I have 4 loves. I have 5 children. I love all of them most days. I have a husband. I love him most days. I love cybersecurity. For me, it's not a job, it's a way of life. And I have a mission in my life to help make the world a better place. And I love developing world-class teams and leaders. And I think what's special about the journey I've had, as far as, like you, being able to do a lot of different things, look at a lot of different roles, the question of the people and the culture that comes with it. And so I'm going to ask you another question. And it's kind of a funny question because, you're a mentor to me. And I hope that once in a while I give you a good piece of advice. But as you started to rise in your career, was there a defining moment or series of events or person or mentor that helped you along the way? And do you still get mentored? How have people and different things impacted you from a professional development standpoint?
So, I've had many defining moments, but I think the one that was the most critical and to my success later on was an event that happened at a company, I want to say about 20 years ago, because I don't think it would happen today. Okay, so let me put it in perspective. But I was at a meeting, there were about 20 people in the room. There were 4 senior leaders within the IT department. I happened to be one of them. I was the only female. And I worked with a gentleman who was another senior leader who was gnarly. And I don't know if people know what that is, but he just had this gnarly attitude and he just didn't like anybody. But I think he especially decided that he didn't really like me at all. And so I was at a meeting with these 20 people, most of them, a layer or 2 below us. And he started basically saying, I didn't know what I was talking about. You don't know what you're talking about, and you're wrong, and basically became a little more obnoxious about it. And that's the part that I don't think would be allowed today. And there was somebody from HR in the room. So when the meeting was over, and I didn't say anything, and he was actually also giving bad information. So I walked outside and I grabbed the HR person and I said, that was really awful. And I think he really did cross some lines and it was more obnoxious than normal. And the HR person said to me, if you can't handle a difficult situation, then you actually shouldn't be running the cybersecurity program for this company. And I went, and I thought, oh my goodness. So I literally thought, what am I going to do? And I went to my boss and I said, I think that I could use a coach. I didn't even know what they were called. I called him a coach. I said, I need some help here. I said, well, thank you for asking, because I was getting ready to fire you. And I thought, oh my goodness. So he gave me a coach. Cost the company back then a pretty penny. The coach made me read a book, which was called How to Have a Difficult Conversation. There are many books like that today. And so now as a mentor, that's actually one of the things that I talk quite often about, which is, are the people that I'm speaking with able to have those difficult conversations, whether it be about, their pay, or they need something for their team, or they need something. And so that was probably the most defining moment, because you have many difficult conversations as as in this job. And the other thing that it made me really aware of was that if you allow bad data to live, like, it becomes the truth. And so when I would talk to my own team, I'd say, listen, please, Renee's rules, don't allow misinformation to exist. If you know that you must correct it in real time, because you can't run around to everybody who was in the meeting who's already talking to 5 more people, and you can't correct it after it's sort of more or less written in the stone. And so those were really, the lessons that I think have kept me, have been with me now, which is, making sure that I can have a difficult conversation, and then 2, don't allow that bad data to live on if in fact it's just wrong. And so do I get mentored today? Absolutely. And it's a two-way street. I'm actually mentoring two people now. One is a crypto guy in London, and another is a deputy, and one's a male, one's a female, and it's very different, right? In terms of the information, what we talk about. But the crypto guy certainly is helping me understand crypto more than I used to, But yeah, and that's part of, I think, what makes you successful. You have to be willing to be a lifelong learner, and you have to be able to ask for help.
It's interesting. I just gave a master class on mentoring, and the concept that I always talk about, which is raise your hand. Raise your hand for opportunities, raise your hand to volunteer for new things. And that's kind of been my life motto for my career in cyber is, raising your hand. And, whether or not I knew every aspect or wanted that particular role at the time, I would ask and I would try. And I would surround myself or ask the people I admired. And I lovingly referred to them early in my career as my cyber crushes, to be my mentors, to help me, understand how they had done things and to go through. And that 360 mentoring of, being mentored by people that you admire in the industry, people who are your peers, and people who, are up and coming, to see the feedback they have as you as a leader, I think is so critical. And I remember for me, my defining moment, because for the first about 15 years of my career, I was totally happy being the number two. I loved having somebody else in the spotlight and me being their right hand. I was completely okay being somebody else's right hand. And I remember the defining moment for me, which was, I was the right hand of a great CISO. There had been a question of him moving back to London. It wasn't going to happen. And he resigned immediately. And I drove into the Lincoln Tunnel in New York. The phone rang. And by the time I exited the Lincoln Tunnel, I was the interim CISO for a very large company, because there could not be a CISO. And boom, I'm there. I'm on stage. And I remember it being so terrifying, but being able to call those mentors and, from a 360 perspective, some of the staff that was going to up and come and say, okay, what do I need to do here? How do I do this? And have that support system. So it was, to some degree, both a defining moment and then a really robust, group of mentors that to this day, I still am constantly temperature checking myself, looking at imposter syndrome and thinking, how can I, surround myself with people that are going to help, keep me on track within my own professional career. It's interesting. You and I talk about these, kind of crazy weaving journeys. And I know one of the questions I get asked a lot is, as students and as the folks that are on this call are thinking about a career in cyber, what are some of the key requirements today? I mean, you can have degrees in cyber now. You can have master's degrees in cyber. So you can have, the largest universities in the world are offering cyber programs. Is it about experience? Is it about education? Is it certifications? I love programs like the one that Karen and Jennifer put together as far as CTFs, because I think capture the flag competitions are some of the best ways to start testing and understanding different types of cyber skills. I know I've used them in my own career. I love to do them. I've used them to help get, some young people that may be from a marketing background to some exposure of what it's like to actually do something with more on a hands-on keyboard type of a scenario. Some of the professional groups I know we both belong to. What do you think it is as far as understanding what we can do to, get ready for a career in cyber? What are some of the key requirements?
So I think that there are a number of requirements. I mean, you have to have some technical savvy. And what I mean by that, I think some of what we're experiencing now is not actually thinking what can go wrong. So I have a theory that when you actually build requirements for something, you need to assign one person to think about, well, if you want that system to do X, these 9 things, what's the thing that you don't want it to do? Right. And then actually maybe even try to figure out how you test to make sure this, whatever you're building would stand up against that particular type of abuse or that kind of thing. And so what I have seen go wrong, has come from experience. So I'll give you an example. We implemented a product on my team, and we did not ask the pivotal question, which was, how did the vendor test that their product could scale? Well, guess what? that the way when we actually had an outage and it wasn't insignificant, we went back and we said, well, what happened here? How do you test for scale? And they said, we just run it at, what the largest customer that we have is what we scale to. And I said, wait a minute, but we were bigger than that company. And so there are some things that I would tell you but those are things you can learn, and things that once they happen and go wrong, you never forget to ask that question. But certificates, and there are a lot, even boards of directors now can get a board certification in cyber, right? So you have to at least know the fundamentals, and there are fundamentals. There are some fundamental regulations. There's just some fundamentals that you probably can learn through some courses and then make sure that you know them. But the field is also changing very quickly. So you need to stay current. And I think that's even much easier than it used to be, because you can do things like attend this seminar, and you don't have to do it on our time. You can go replay it and do it on your time, right? So there are so many ways now that you can actually continue to learn. And I think that's really, if there was one thing that I think would break you, that would be the failure to learn. The ability you need to be adaptive, agile. And then the other thing that's really critical is the ability to communicate. And communicate's also two things. It includes listening. So you have to learn how to communicate. You have to make sure that people understand, what you're trying to tell them. People would say to me, well, my team would come back and say, they really didn't get it. I said, well, tell me how you told them. And I said, well, let's try another method, or let's try another approach, or let's try to create a visual for them that they'll understand. And so it's a combination of the technical, and it's a lot of soft skill, and it's also remaining current. And I'll say this, I'm at a meeting right now, we're talking about geopolitical events and, what might happen if we do get to true cyber warfare. And so you also have to be willing to be, to look at big picture, especially as you continue to move up, and you have to be able to think through, the different things that can happen to your company, to your organization, to the world, and figure out what that will also mean for cyber.
I think you're so spot on. And I'll say, one of the things I love about cyber is, there's been now 3 or 4 young people who've worked, with me or for me in my career, who've said, I'd like to, do more within cyber. And they've been admins, or, one was actually did our sales forecasting and had no background. And we put, can we put someone on mute, please? We put around a program around these folks to say, okay, what are your goals, and what do you want to accomplish within the cyber industry? And one wanted to be a sales engineer, so we actually put her through engineering camp. In essence, we had her work with a senior engineer. We developed a plan of certification. We developed the areas of focus that she was interested in, and she's now a senior sales engineer for a security company out in the West Coast. Another one really loved cloud and wanted to work with cloud partners. And so we put together a process to, again, upskill her from an engineering perspective, make sure she understood the basics, and then gave her exposure to working with cloud security companies so that she could understand, how do you build out a framework? How do you build out an offering? How do you do this? How do you do that? And she now runs a cloud practice for a security vendor. I think it's a question of, and that's one of the things I love about security, is you're right, it's so fast paced that as long as there's a desire to learn, and I'm a voracious learner, my husband laughs that I think I read, he counted it, I think I read about 2 hours worth of cyber something a day. It's just who I am. Again, it's part of my DNA. So I'm always at late at night reading on my Kindle some type of something. And I know you're the same way, because you send me stuff. And it's just a question of, as long as you don't hesitate on wanting to join, there will always be a way, whether it's ISSA, ISACA, SANS, a lot of the certifications. There's great women's groups, there's great collaboration groups, experiencing CTFs like the one we're kicking off today. There's always a way in. That being said, I'm going to expand a little bit on this topic. You said it best, cyber is always changing. It's always evolving. I think we can safely say that cyber touches all aspects of our lives today. And there's a lot of jokes that, your toaster could start attacking your refrigerator. But in all seriousness, when you think about our industry today, How do you think cyber is going to impact us going forward?
So I think a lot about this because I do believe that now safety has become in play, and people will either have a safety issue caused by some kind of cyber event, or they're not going to feel safe. And I'll give you two examples. One, I mean, hospitals are being targeted now. And when that happens, if a hospital gets ransomware and they can't get things back, they actually cancel surgery. And I have heard a story, I think it's true, but don't quote me, that somebody couldn't get to their hospital. Their hospital was not taking people because they actually had a cyber attack, and he couldn't get to the next closest hospital, and he died. So I think that, and I was on a plane one time flying back to Atlanta, and Atlanta Hartsfield had an outage. And all I could think of, and so they rerouted the plane to Tennessee, and the next day we got on and they had a paper manifest. And it made me feel so uncomfortable. I really thought, wouldn't I be better off just driving from Tennessee to Atlanta than getting back on a plane with a paper manifest? And so I worry a lot about those intersections, especially because, to your point, the funny story about the toaster, but manufacturing now, like if somebody got into a plant and decided that they wanted to tweak the recipe, okay, now suddenly you don't have the product, and just imagine that you're diabetic, and the thing that you thought you were buying isn't the ingredient, and so I think there's all kinds of things now that I don't think are out of the realm of what we need to pay attention to. And yeah, and I think we have substantially evolved in the 30 years that I've been doing cyber. We had like 5 products when I was started out, Kate. There were 5 different products. That was it. That was all you could buy. And now there's a lot of products, but there's a lot of products because I think there are really legitimate risks, whether it to be manufacturing or whether it to be maritime. I talked about maritime cybersecurity. You don't want your satellites to go out. I can tell you that. All right. So
It's funny, and it's not funny because you're exactly right. And you and I both can tell stories, and you talked about the from a hospital perspective, people dying. And I remember the attack where that was an issue. If you think about NotPetya and some of the attacks on the hospitals across the UK, it did cost lives. And I think about the early days, like when I was saying I was walking the roofs of Scotland Yard, because the first CISO mentor of mine, it was a financial services attack. 200 data centers had been hit, and it was a smash and grab that was actually, in essence, them hiding sniffers to access data, and it was Eastern Europe. And I remember him saying to me, "Hey, the next time they're not going to rappel down the elevator shaft and use magnetic door openers. They're going to walk in the front door and hold a gun to the security guard's head because your security is lax here." And going, yeah, 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 as you do in your early 20s, as you're trying to do 50,000 things at once, and writing a note to enhance the learning and the security for the guards and the people on staff, and even down to the janitor. And 2 weeks later, the same group of criminals walked in the front door, held a gun to the head of the security guard, and got in for a second time. And it was one of those life changing moments where, to your point, security became a part of my life. Because what I learned was you are only as good as the person sweeping the floor. If they don't understand what the security is, it doesn't matter how many different types of layers you put in, everyone has a role to play in cyber. And as we continue to advance, Uber's been all over the news lately on the breach. And I remember sitting in a gray hat session at a CTF, actually, in Dayton, Ohio 10 years ago, where there was a discussion and actually a white paper on how Uber could be utilized as a weapon of mass destruction. And I think that's when we all have a part to play in cyber. It's never going to be 100% safe. And the more we are able to impact and make everyone aware of how to be, in essence, proactive in their own understanding, then the safer, in essence, we will become. So I'm going to get off my soapbox for a second. And I just want to thank you for doing this talk with me, Renee. I really appreciate it. And I hope our audience does too. Guys, we're going to be having questions in a few minutes, but we've got one more question left for Renee. If you can think up some questions for us, we would be happy to spend a couple of minutes chatting with you and answering your questions. But before we wrap up, Renee, again, you've been amazing. What is the advice you would give our audience? You know, there are a lot of them are about to embark on their first capture the flag. Many are probably, hopefully, after our inspiring conversation, thinking about a career in security. What advice do you have for this call?
You know, it's a good question, Kate. I think my advice is that, firstly, I think there's so much opportunity in our space. I've already talked about the 600,000, that if you have a passion, and I think in the way I feel about it now is that I do think we've morphed into what I'm going to call the safety impact. We need people with psychology, degrees, behavioral scientists. I mean, to really, to your point, it is everybody's job. And here's what I learned today, that the culture of the company, what people do when you're not looking is really what's important. So how do you engage the janitor, right? You don't want him being the guy doing the wrong thing when nobody's looking. And so they're just, I would say, go for it. I mean, I am so passionate about this space that I think if you have, even no matter what you're doing, I'll even say this, if you're a big data, like if you're doing something in technology, you will have to do something with cyber. There'll be some part of it that will just touch you. And I would say, don't fight it. I mean, it's there, it's going to be part of everything. I'd say at least learn some fundamental things, but I would say go for it. If you're at all intrigued about a career that will honestly, I think you'll feel like you're making a difference. I mean, I think that's how I feel. That's how most people feel that are in this business, is that we're really doing something good. And if you want to be part of something good and part of a community, and that's, so the only advice that I would say then is that network with people. Like, this is a community. This is not a lone ranger trying to fight the bad guys all by themselves. So if you get the opportunity to do something as a group, be part of a group, go to an event where there are other people of like mind, I mean, build your network of people, and be part of a community, because that's really, it's not an individual contributor type of role.
No, I would agree. And my advice would be, to your point, is almost identical, which is it's a community. Learn from as many people as you can, network with as many people as you can, talk with as many people as you can, because it's one of the only career choices I know where you can morph yourself into 1,000 different things as long as you raise your hand. I've been a CRO, I've been a CEO, I've been a CISO, I've been a SVP of God knows what. I've worked with investments. You are the same. You have a multitude of hats. And I don't know another industry that allows us to do that. And it becomes a passion to make the world better, to help, create new things, to be a part of something bigger. And I can't think of another career that could be as rewarding as the one I've been blessed, and I know you as well have, within cyber. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the audience. Any questions, guys? So there's a chat that's you can access from the Zoom screen if you have questions for us. And I see Jennifer joining, and Karen, to see if you guys have anything for us.
So I have a question for both you, Kate and Renee, and thank you so much for being here today. It's really been a fabulous conversation. So as most people that are attending here know, SCET focuses on entrepreneurship. And so I'm hoping that you could give us some ideas of what might be missing in this space, products that you might want, because what we try to encourage our students to do is, think about what the opportunities are from an entrepreneurial perspective. So can you give us some ideas of what you would want in this space?
Renee, I'm going first.
Don't steal mine. I'm not even beaming it to you. Just go ahead.
I'm totally gonna. No, I don't. Hopefully, we'll see. We're in the middle of a huge change in our industry right now. And that being said, we are going from security always being kind of brick and mortar, and you think about the perimeter, and then you kind of surround the castle with the moat, and you're good and you're fortified, to all of a sudden everything being from the inside and data focused out. And that is a massive shift. And the one thing that we are constantly looking for is actionable observability, visibility, being able to see real time that I'm talking to Renee and not my toaster, and here's the connections, here's the data that's going through, and to actually have actionable observability across an environment. That is something that is incredibly difficult, and we're starting to see more and more solutions trend to. The other thing that I am passionate about is transparency. So I don't need to just know that there's 2 Coke cans sitting on a desk. I need to know that one is full and one is unopened, or one is half full and the other is totally empty, or one was actually switched out with a little bit of rum in it, and maybe I don't want to drink that one before I go jump in and do a big conference call. I need to understand every aspect of data, because that's what's going to formulate the security that's happening today. So those are the things that I'm really passionate about. I could go into a lot of other things about regulatory and cyber insurance and all sorts of things, but I'm going to let my friend Renee give her a piece too.
So I won't talk about a gap, like a gap. Let me tell you some things that I'm paying attention to. One, there aren't enough people in the field, and people don't like to do repetitive tasks. Okay, they just don't. Hamsters just, that kind of thing does not, people don't want to do that. I'm really excited about automation, AI, ML. And I am working with a VC firm, and that they only invest in companies that have artificial intelligence and machine learning as part of their stack. I think that's important, and we need to stop throwing rocks at it. I don't think it's silly, it's necessary. 2, I think the reason why people bypass securities is it's friction. We create friction, sometimes. I mean, who can stand, yet another password, or like, for some reason now I'm going to this one website, and for as many times as I go with my computer, every time it says, we don't recognize your device. And it literally puts me back through the same set of 7 questions every time. I've gone there 3 times today. Not only does it not recognize my device, it doesn't recognize it in the same day. And friction. So find things that will make it easier for people to be naturally secure, right? And not offended by security. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is, I talked about manufacturing, and that's really called OT, and industrial control system security. And that's sort of an emerging space right now. And I think that there's still innovation that can happen in that space. I also think there's room to improve things that frankly, if I helped invent the control 30 years ago, it's probably not effective anymore. And we do things today because some regulator showed up and said, hey, show me this change ticket. So again, I would say, don't be afraid of looking at something. We're in a room right now talking about something that everybody does, everybody hates to do it, and we do it because regulators want. So I would say, don't be afraid to sort of challenge the status quo either. And I think there's a lot of room for innovation still.
I see a hand being raised. Let's see. Karen, Jennifer, help me. How do I work with a hand being raised?
Oh, he can just unmute himself. Go ahead, Akko.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the discussion, Renee and Kate. I'm actually not that familiar with the cybersecurity space, and so it was interesting to kind of get an insight on that front. I do have a question though. So I think it was Renee that just mentioned using, companies being more reliant on AI and ML models. And one question that I always have on that regard is, when we develop and we train AI and ML models, there's often bias, and I'm just wondering, how prevalent is that bias in the cybersecurity industry, and how does that kind of affect, how cyber criminals are able to, like if let's say a cyber criminal were to find a flaw in a model of yours, how is that being combated currently?
It's a really good question, and I was actually going to say something about that. Yes, the answer is yes. And so there are, I know of different people that are looking at frameworks, but this is issue of bias, and there have been stories about the bias, right, and what it causes. normal QA practices, I don't think are designed to necessarily flesh out the bias. So there's a lot of talk right now, and so I know of a couple startups that are trying to develop how people can test the model or the outcome, you know, to mitigate the bias thing. And then my only other comment there is because I do think that perfection can be the enemy of good. And I would say to you that if you have to wake somebody up at 3 a.m. in the morning, get them out of bed and get them to figure out, are they pressing the red button or the blue button? I'm telling you, figure out a way to automate that. And I can guarantee, I'm almost positive that whatever whether it's the red or the blue will be a better choice than somebody waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to make an important decision. If you can get them up, you know, so if you can find them. And so, yes, the answer is yes. And there's innovation going on in this space.
I'm going to take it a step further. So I was actually the CEO of an AI ML company called Sensient. And we did AI triangulation leveraging the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So all of the different, in essence, things that MITRE does. We did that. We leveraged that with behavioral patterning and looking at what the user's behavior pattern was, and then coupled that with what we saw happening within the environment. So it's funny because you can mitigate the bias using the attack framework because it's very cut and dry. Are they using this tactic? Are they using that tactic? Is it mimikatz? Is it this? Is it that? But we leverage the bias on the other side to say that, you know, Renee always gets up at 3 in the morning and checks her email almost religiously. If Renee's on the computer at 6 p.m., which she never is, we can utilize that. You know, we're going to raise a flag because it goes against her profile. So it's interesting because while the bias can be an issue on some things, it can actually be our friend in other things because humans are repeatable patterns. You know, we do the same things, whether we like it or not, over and over and over and over again. And so there's an interesting dichotomy there as we continue to leverage. I don't think I'm completely with Renee. There's things that can be automated and things that, you know, and it's why I was passionate about Sensient and working with it with an early stage startup in AI that we can leverage. And there's also things that we're never going to get quite right. And we're going to always have to have some human intelligence behind kind of watching what's going on. I know we're running out of time and Karen has to talk about a challenge and a flag and what's happening next. Karen, I promised you 10 minutes. Do we have time for one more question if there is one, or should we get to your flag?
I think we have time for one more. We have about like 3 minutes. If anyone has any additional questions, this is a great opportunity. You have the greatest minds in the industry right in front of you. So please raise your hand. This is the moment.
So take advantage of it.
She's the greatest mind. I'm just the sidekick.
Please.
So Renee, what are the names of the startups that you were mentioning?
You know, it's a good question. I'm not going to be good at that. So no.
You can email me later and I can share it. How's that?
Yeah. I don't even know if all of them made it. Some of them are just sort of like thinking, but to your point, there are people working through this problem. I'll check back with one of them, and I think if they're working through some of this, I can at least give you a few ideas.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I'll give the floor to everybody else.
All right, I don't see any other questions or hands being raised. So Karen, if anyone has additional questions for us, please feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn. You can find me at kate.b.keen@gmail.com or on Twitter, and we can provide Renee's information as well. But I just wanted to say thank you guys. And with that, Renee, you and I can hop off and let Karen roll with her announcing her flag. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks so much for the
Thank
opportunity.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. As I promised earlier, I will be going over one of the flags with you all today. But before I do that, I just want to just briefly go over what was talked about, like really just having that initiative, really just taking that step forward in learning. and finding that mentor or finding that help and that support was key for them, right? And leveraging that, and now like this challenge, this is something I'm assuming it's new for all of you, and you have never even thought about cybersecurity, right? And the name just even sounds intimidating. But when we were designing this, the Berkeley Cybersecurity Club, we really wanted to keep in mind how hard it was, like getting started and learning all these different terms, learning what cryptography is, learning what phishing is. So we really wanted to simplify it and make this a gamified experience for you all. Another thing I wanted to mention was these are things that you will see in the cybersecurity industry. So these are skills that you are learning that you can apply moving forward. And as was mentioned by Renee, which is this industry has so many opportunities. I've heard of freshmen that, or high school students even, that are working at Boeing, Raytheon, have security clearance, having all these amazing opportunities because they know these skills in cybersecurity, because they took the time to really just like do CTFs, take that self-initiative to learn. So congratulations to all of you for taking that first step and hopping on this call and hearing what we had to say about cybersecurity. And now, without further ado, let's dive into the CTF. I'm going to be pasting in the chat where you all will be going to register. This is the kickoff. This is where we're going live with the CTF. So if you all want to open that, once you open that, it will take you to a register page. I don't want to assume that all of you already are innovation fellows. Just want to do a quick overview. So this is a challenge within the Innovation Fellows program. So you will be receiving 30 points towards your Innovation Fellows ranking. And also, we also at the end, once you all finish all flags, we will be having an ice cream party at the end, which we are super excited. That will be sponsored by HackerOne, where we're going to be raffling out AirPods. And we really want this to be an experience for you all to learn something new with no pressure to be the first one done. It's going to be a lottery system. So all your names will be placed into a raffle where we will be handing out, I believe, 5 AirPods. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jen.
That is correct.
Yeah, so the chances of you guys winning one is very high. And I know AirPods come very in handy, especially when I'm in the library, listening to a lecture, and so forth. So first you have to register for the Innovation Fellows program. You can then scroll down and find the cybersecurity challenge. You all already joined this event where we're going to be going into a flag. At the end, once you have finished finding all the flags, you're going to take a screenshot that you found all of the flags, and then you're going to upload that to an Airtable form showing that you have found all the flags. Let me know. Okay. I see a question in the chat. Do we have to be registered with SCET first before the CTF to get points? I have just found out about this program, and yeah, actually, you can definitely join. The Innovation Fellows program is really amazing because it's really self-paced. It's really about you learning and taking that initiative to get these skills, do these challenges, engage with these security leaders or leaders in the entrepreneurship space. There's a lot of other challenges here in the Innovation Fellows program, and you can register at any time and do these challenges as time fits, because we understand that you are all students and you have classes and other responsibilities. So we really wanted you all to feel empowered to do this at your own pace. Great question. Thank you so much for asking that. All right, so if there's any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Now let's dive into the CTF. So what is a CTF? A CTF is a capture the flag competition where it's a series of different, I think of it as puzzles, where you get the opportunity to solve these cybersecurity challenges. And then once you find the key or the answer, that's your flag. and then you submit it into the answer sheet. And I will go through that with you all right now. So once you all go to the SCETctf.org/register, it will take you to this place. I just made this account. So we're gonna say submit. So now we can see all of our challenges. All of these challenges are independent. You don't have to start with one or start with two. You can start with whichever one you want. They're not dependent on each other, but the numbers rank in difficulty. So like 6 and 7 are going to be much harder than 1 and 2. It's really up to you. They're different topics, each in their own. And another thing is you can also see the scoreboard. You can see how your peers are doing, who has found a flag. Oh my goodness, I already see a couple of you finding flags already. Amazing job. And then you can see frequently asked questions right here. Also, there is, once you register for the Innovation Fellows, you're going to be getting a link to the Slack channel. Within the Slack channel, there is a CTF/challenge. And there you can ask any questions. Members from the Berkeley Cybersecurity Club will be there answering questions. We're really here to support you on this journey. We know you are all stepping outside of your comfort zone and trying something new, which we really admire. So we are here to support in any way we can. Another thing I want to mention is that we will also be having the speaker series, where we're going to be having other amazing security industry professionals. How I like to think about them is like, they're all Batman. Like, you don't know who it is or what they're exactly doing, but you just know they're keeping you safe. So our first guest speaker is going to be Sam. She actually works in embedded systems. When I first met her, she told me how she hacks into the latest BMWs and into banks. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Things you see in like Mission Impossible. And then our second speaker is going to be Christopher Kirk, who works on the DART team at Microsoft. And he's going to be sharing a bit about his experience and what he's seen in the industry. And lastly, we're going to be having Ryan, who is just an all-around amazing superstar in the cybersecurity industry. We really want you all to come out and feel empowered to ask any question. No question is a bad question. Everyone knows that when you first try something new, it's going to be overwhelming and intimidating. So we really want to be here to support you in any way we can. So after those speaker series, after they give their talk, we're going to be having like 10 minutes at the end to answer any questions relating to the challenges, if there are some that are a bit more difficult for you all. So know that there is support for you as you go on this journey. Okay, now let's get started. So a picture is worth 1,000 words. 1,000 words. I'm sure you all have heard of this before. So this is the first flag that we're going to be going over. The scenario is a criminal has robbed a lot of money from Big Bank Inc. But while they were fleeing, a phone fell out of their pocket and was left behind. The FBA has tasked you to find useful information from this photo on where the criminal might be. So we see that we have an image that we are able to download. Once we open this, we see, give me a second, let me share my entire screen. I think you are all able to see my screen. Can I see a thumbs up, Jen? Can you see my screen? Can you see the image?
Yes, I can see the screen.
Okay, awesome. And when we first take a look at this, we're like, what is this? Like, is this an abandoned warehouse? What is this location? The name is unknown location. Are there any hints with this? No, I don't quite see anything. Okay. One thing that's really helpful for me when I'm a bit confused or don't really know what to do, and I know I have an image, I just go on Google and I look up image data, how to get data from an image. Okay, so extract data from an image. Okay, so I can see we can extract data from images and maps, insert data from a picture, how to extract data from an image. Okay, so there's a lot of different websites that help me do this. Okay, so what do I want? So I see like there's a video on it. One thing that really helps me is watching these videos or reading about it. Okay, so I see how to extract data from photos easily. EXIF viewer. Okay, let me look up EXIF viewer. Okay, so we have online EXIF viewer. We have EXIF data viewer. Okay, let me select that, see where it takes me. Okay, so then it explains to me that it even has GPS information. Okay, that might be helpful, date and image when it was taken. Okay, so now I want to upload my picture. Okay, so I want to browse and then go to downloads, go to unknown location, open. Let's see what we get. Okay, so when we upload this, okay, I see, oh, wow, okay, we have a GPS position. So we can actually use this. And this is where they are hiding, where they're planning on meeting. Let's try this other flag. And also there's hints. So we know like what kind of flag we're looking for. If you ever get stuck, a lot of these challenges, I think all of them have a hint to help you get started. Okay, let's submit it. Let's see if it's right. Okay, we got our first flag. We're well on our journey to get started in cybersecurity. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about this, and feel free to ask me any questions. If we miss the challenge due date, does it mean that we can no longer be submitted? So the challenge is due on October 26th, I believe, in the afternoon. I mean, at night at 11:59. The reason for the challenge due date is because we are having an ice cream party and we do want to give out these prizes. Like we want to give you guys the AirPods. So you can feel free to continue doing the challenge beyond that, just to gain that experience. But the challenge is there, so like we know who to put into the raffle. Do we have to submit the activity submission for this challenge in the Airtable? Yeah, so just how we were looking at the challenges. So as you can see, now this one is green, right? So all of these should be green in your screenshot, in your submission to the Airtable, to let us know that you found all of the flags. And then depending on if you have a Mac or a Windows or Linux, you can, and a Mac, you can screenshot by doing Command-Shift-4, and then you can just like this. Got it. Thanks.
Karen, how many flags will there be?
There are 7 flags right now, I believe. Yes, 7.
Okay.
Will there be more? We are thinking of adding harder challenges, like harder flags, but those would be optional. Those would just be so you all can gain more experience. It wouldn't be part of the SCT, and we're gonna mark those under like additional like practice. But yeah, all these flags are really like intro friendly, very beginner friendly. We don't want you all to feel like, oh, I don't have experience in CS, I don't have experience in data science, I can't start. This is for you. Like we designed this for everyone in mind, regardless if you're bioengineering, political science, history major, wherever you come from, wherever your major background is, this challenge was made for you. And we're really here to support you in this. I think that, yeah, the Airtable form is not updated for this challenge yet, but it should be available shortly. Any more questions? Of course. No? Okay. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Jen, so much for all your support with this challenge. I'm very excited to see what you all accomplish.